Welcome to the Terry Sullivan Show. I'm Terry Sullivan, and I am excited about our guest today. My friend, Judge Robert Ramirez, is here with us today, and we're going to get into some pretty good stuff, so you won't want to go anywhere. And I'm just going to dig right in. Judge, it's good to have you today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I know you were expecting to have ribs today, but we just ain't got them.
I understand. I can probably, every once in a while, it's probably good for me not to have ribs and barbecue. At least that's what my wife says.
I was going to talk to you about that, but now that it's already out there, your wife is correct. I appreciate you being here today, Judge. And you are the appellate judge for precinct.
For all the JP courts,
All
so
JP
not just Judge Curbo in precinct. Is he two or three? There's 6 of them.
Right.
And love doing that. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think he is precinct 3. And by the way, he told me to tell you that he tries to send all of his appeals to you, and he said you would appreciate that.
I appreciate that Judge Curbo is such a good JP that we don't get many from him. And that's a good thing because, we have other things that we do. We are the Court of Appeals for them, but there are other things on our docket other than just JP3 or JP2 or JP1.
Well, it's all about Judge Curbo. He all you have time for is his appeals. Judge, what in today's world, what are the challenges of being a judge in today's world?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you that one of the biggest challenges that I see for the bench is how to deal with people who are not represented by counsel. You see that more in the appeals from the JP courts. Typically, when they start off in my court, most of them understand they need an attorney. But here's the deal. If you're going to come to a county court or a district court, the state trial level courts, we have to follow the rules of civil procedure, rules of evidence. They're complex. If you put them all into one book, which a lot of publishers do, that book is probably about this thick.
Right.
It's not easy to navigate for a first-year lawyer. When a person comes in without counsel and they're looking at you and they want you to help them, I can't. I'm not their advocate. I have to be the impartial party.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that...
How hard is that? How hard is it for you to stay impartial? Because you want to reach out and help, but at the same time, it's like...
I don't find that to be as difficult as you might think.
Okay.
My jurisdiction is primarily civil. So I'm not seeing heinous crimes against children. I'm not seeing family disputes. I'm seeing disputes over money primarily. And I'm a big believer... One of our former Supreme Court justices, U.S. Supreme Court, Antoine Scalia, did a great opinion about how well the adversarial system works, about how well that process of bringing the dispute, bringing the law to a judge works. And I got some really good advice when I first got on the bench by the presiding judge of the region that sits in Fort Worth, Judge Walker, who's now retired. He said, remember, these are not your cases. You're not personally involved. Your job is to be the decision maker. Do that.
So that helps you remove the emotion out of cases because, when it comes to court and it comes to money, it comes to a lot of emotion and tempers and that kind of thing. So I would assume is it difficult or not difficult to keep your personal emotions out of it?
I just don't think it's that difficult for the most part. I want to try their case according to Texas law as it's written. And that's it. I don't want to get upset about the fact that someone did someone else wrong, that someone is incapable of following the contract, that someone got injured in an accident. My job is to make sure, hey, we're going to try this according to the rules of law and according to the substantive law, whatever that is, whether it's negligence, whether it's an eviction case from the JP court, whether it's a contract dispute or a business dispute. My job is to sit there and not put emotion into it. And I think that's one of the more disappointing things about the profession today is that some lawyers don't understand that. Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to get personally involved either. Their job is to be the hired advocate, but it's not their case. It's not their family. They need to do the best job they can do. That's different from I feel personally involved in the case.
Right.
Right?
Do you ever get stuck? I mean, do you ever get in a case where it's hard to rule?
Sure. Certainly there are times when something novel happens and you have an area of law that hasn't been touched on much. There's not a lot of opinions out there about how to apply this law to these types of facts. That occurs. And sometimes you do look at a situation, you say, man, I hate to rule this way, but this is the way the law is telling me that I have to rule. There's an old saying, you hear it in law school at the very beginning, bad facts make bad law. I try not to let that happen.
Mm.
I don't want to do anything that changes the law as it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the outcome is not the outcome that I think is fair or right, my job is to make sure that I apply the law the same way to whoever comes in the court, regardless of the situation.
Are there gray areas where you just you go, you know what? I need another judge's opinion.
There are lots of times that I ask for other judges' opinions, okay? I like to bounce things off with my fellow county court at law judges, even though their jurisdictions are different. They still have seen lots of different things. There are times that the new regional presiding judge, I'll call him and I'll ask him what his thoughts are on something. I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think working with other people, getting their perspective, tapping into their wisdom and knowledge, that is a good thing.
Yes.
That is absolutely a good thing.
How much harder did your job get during COVID?
It got very hard very quickly. I'll tell you how COVID rolled out for me. We were on spring break. Kids, we had taken them, we'd gone to Disney World. COVID was really ramping up. And as we were about to leave Disney World, they made the announcement that they were closing Disney World. So we were some of the last folks there. We got back and the Supreme Court began to issue emergency orders under the governor's emergency orders. And one of the first emergency orders were, you need to stop requiring people to come to court. What do? How do we make that happen?
Right.
We didn't have a mechanism for that. I used to let people conduct some types of hearing by phone if they were non-evidentiary in nature. The Supreme Court had allowed that since like 1902. But we didn't have video conferencing. We didn't have any of that. And I'll tell you, the Office of Court Administration, the Supreme Court of the state of Texas, moved in very quickly. And they ended up setting up Zoom. They ended up buying us all accounts. They ended up putting on webinars that taught us how to use it. And within a few weeks, I'm not going to say that I was an expert at Zoom because I was not,
Mm-hmm.
but we could be proficient at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we could continue to hold court. We were coming into the courthouse, but the lawyers and the parties were not.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing things online. We were continuing to move things. And as the months went by, it was almost like a normal docket, with the exception that we couldn't do jury trials.
Mm-hmm.
Jury trials were just something that I know some courts tried it, but that's just something that doesn't lend itself very well to
Sure.
video conferencing.
Yeah. So during COVID, things are shutting down. Everything's getting displaced. And I'm sure that you were in direct contact with the governor's office, and nobody really knew what to do on the whole planet, right? So did you ever second guess what he was doing?
Sure. No, I wondered, and this is my own personal perspective, I wondered about what we were doing in shutting down our economy. I wondered what the repercussions of that would be. I felt that I had no personal contact with the governor's office. Our contact was essentially through the Supreme Court, their emergency orders, and what they did is they empowered that regional presiding judge in Fort Worth. They gave that judge a tremendous amount of authority. And so we had lots of contact with him, but very little contact, no contact with the Supremes and none with the governor's office either.
Got it. How do you, as a judge, how do you have friends? I mean, you can't have just normal friendships. I mean, because if I end up in your court, you can bet I'm gonna be back there going, "Hey, ribs." How do you do that?
It's, I have tried to maintain friendships just like I did when I was in private practice. I don't think becoming a judge means that you're no longer a member of the human race. I'm just a guy that puts on a robe and makes decisions. Now, when people do come in my court, and they do come in my court that I know, what do I have to do? I have to do something called a recusal, where I tell the presiding judge of the region, Judge, I know one of these parties. We need to get someone else in here to do it. Sometimes he'll just say, fine, we're going to get Judge Oliver to come and sit on this case, or I'm going to assign Justice Gabriel, who's a retired judge, to come down and hear your case. No big deal. There's a mechanism for that. As a matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago, my former legal assistant came in on a case, and I had to say, look, I can't hear this case. She used to be my legal assistant. Going to have to get another judge to come do it. Judge Isaacs came and did it. No problem.
You know, we could have gone this whole interview without bringing up Judge Oliver. And here we are, bringing up Judge Oliver.
I couldn't do that. And I have to, I am so blessed to have such great fellow members of the judiciary. Even chance, I hate to say that. I hate to say even chance. But I'll tell you, let me just say something about all of them. Judge Kimberly McCary is county court. I'm county court law number 2. Judge McCary is county court number 1. She's the juvenile judge. She and I are the most senior with number of years in the county court bench. So she does nothing but juvenile. Then we move over to the criminal court. So you've got criminal court 1, which is Judge Ragland, Lori Ragland. She's brand new. She was just appointed last year, doing a great job from the district attorney's office. Criminal court number 2 is Judge Susan Peel. She is the assault family violence judge. Great judge from the DA's office. Fantastic person. Judge Forrest Beadle, criminal court number 3, veterans treatment court. When veterans get into trouble and we know it's related to something like PTSD, he gets them in that court, and there are some services that they can provide for them. Number 4, that's Judge Oliver. I'm sorry to say. He does a great job, though. He serves with me on the Texas Center for the Judiciary. He does a lot of DWI education. Great guy. And then, of course, Judge Waddell, who you've seen a couple of times as well. Right. He's criminal court number 5, another really good guy, doing the mental health treatment court, which we need more of, and of course the DWI treatment court, trying to prevent these people from having to come back into the criminal justice system. They spend long times on probation, much longer than they would if they just took a plea, but hopefully it's helping them to move forward in their lives and not come back into the justice system.
You know, we really do have great judges, and I've met so many of them coming through the restaurant. I love Chance, great family man, great Christian man, great family. He's just so easy to kid.
He is. He is.
Judge, if you could go to every law school in the country and you could say, you know, please teach attorneys to do this better before they come to court.
I would say there's a practical side to that, and then there's a more philosophic side to that. The practical side is, you've got to do a better job of teaching attorneys what it means to really practice. And by that, I mean how to do some of the basic mechanics. Filing a case, finding clients, keeping your own books, running a business. Those are things that law schools traditionally have not done very well. But I'm going to tell you the philosophical issue that I have with law schools. They do a horrible job of convincing attorneys, young attorneys, that the way to get ahead in life is to be all about you, to be ultra competitive, to step on the other person to get ahead. When I was in law school at SMU, we had people hiding books in the library, tearing pages out of books in the library. That type of behavior is encouraged in the legal education. I had an MBA before I went to law school, so my education prior to going to law school was all about team. How do you get put together into with groups of people you don't know and make it work, right? Right. There is more to life about that than there is about stepping on the other person that's standing next to you. And law schools just do a horrible job of convincing people that, hey, if you can work together as a team, you can do so much more than you can do as an individual.
Judge, why do you have such a compassion about people? I mean, you just love people. It comes in you and through you, and it's really refreshing. But how is that? Was that the way you were raised?
I will give a lot of credit to my mom and dad, because they instilled that in me, and they took me to church. And for me, for my belief, Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul, and love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're supposed to do. I don't do a good job of it. I appreciate you saying that. I fall down on that a lot. But that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not the falling down part. I'm not supposed to be doing the falling down, but I'm
But we
supposed
all
to.
do, right? We all do. We live life the best that we can do, and we just kind of navigate through the hard times. Yeah. You and Laura uh, have been married for over 20 years.
Yes, sir.
You have great kids.
Thank you.
Is it difficult when you take off your robe? Are you able to just leave it in the courtroom and go home, or do you take some of it home?
I am fortunate again in my jurisdiction because I don't hear those child protective services cases. I don't hear those criminal cases about people doing horrible things to their family, to people they live next door to. It is fairly easy to leave what happens in the courtroom behind in the courtroom. The part that probably takes up my family time, that takes away some time from them, is the political aspect. Because we are in Texas, we elect all of our judges down from the JPs all the way up to the 2 Supreme Courts.
Right.
We elect all those folks. So part of my job is not just the getting to work at 7:30 in the morning and leaving, whenever the day is done, but part of it is also going to the political events, going to the civic events. That's part of the life that I volunteered to do is that.
Right,
So
right.
and that does, and I do. I don't want to say I regret it. I think I've gotten to spend a lot of time with my kids as they've been growing up. But if there's been one thing that's kind of taken away a little bit of that time, it's the political aspect of the job.
You were elected in 2010.
Yes, sir.
If what's the one thing, Judge, that you wish you knew then about your job that you know now?
I'll tell you the one thing that I had no idea about when I took the bench. And it's not exactly answering your question, but it just was such a shock. And it's still with me to this very day, is the difference in the level and method of practice between attorneys. I always thought of myself as probably an average attorney. And I always wondered, am I doing this right? Am I meeting my deadlines? Am I doing what I need to be doing? And you get on the bench and you realize, oh my gosh, I was doing a pretty good job. That was the most eye-opening thing about getting on the bench, was just the variation in the level of practice of the attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the other thing is just, like with everything else, enjoy every day of it.
So attorneys have tricks, right? I mean, they have tricks of their trade.
Yes, sir.
What's one of those tricks that comes to the courtroom and you go, no, 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 I've seen this 1,000 times. We ain't doing this.
One of the things that I see is that they'll accuse the other side of something, and maybe they have or haven't done it, but they'll immediately ask for the court to give sanctions. They'll say, hey, judge, because I had to come up here and we had to deal with this nonsense, you should pay me my attorneys. You should make them pay my attorney's fees for the day. And for the most part, I won't have any of that. If it's something that, if someone is habitually doing things to incur costs for the other side, sure. But, on that first time, and I don't, that was not the way I practiced. I don't understand why people typically from the county south of this county come in and want that. But it's something that you see a lot of, and you see some of those we call Rambo practice in up here that you see in the county to the south of us. They're just very a little more belligerent,
Mm-hmm.
a little more complaining, and a little bit more eager to tell you about how they do it down in the big city as opposed to how we do it up here.
When you see a situation where things may be getting a little heated, how do you just bring it back immediately?
I try to remind the attorneys of what I believe, and that is, look, stop. Each of you has a doctorate degree. You are professionals. You should act like professionals. All of us here in the courtroom should act like professionals. You're hired to do a job. Do it to the absolute best of your ability, but don't get personally involved in this.
Right, 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 right. Is your dad still alive?
No, he passed last year.
Last year.
Yes, sir.
Was that a hard time for you?
Yes, sir.
Close to your father?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he was 88. It was July 6th, and I got a call from my mom. You know, my dad had survived so much. I remember being in college and getting the call from my dad that he was been diagnosed as being diabetic, and his dad had passed away early in his life, and he thought for sure he would not live to be past 54 years of age. But he lived to be 88, and he got through diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, heart issues, all those kinds of things. And you know, when we get older, we all have health issues, right? And
Sure.
he had to deal with that, but he still got to continue to live a good life until then. And fortunately, and I will say it's a blessing in disguise. He passed away from a massive stroke.
Mm-hmm.
It was on and off.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't suffer. He wasn't left in a vegetative state. He wasn't, you know, in a bed having to take large amounts of morphine
Mm-hmm.
to be anything like comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Sure.
it was just over.
If you when you die, that's a good way to go.
Yes, sir. I agree.
My dad always said when he got older, and he always said, you know, son, if I'd have known getting old was going to be so hard, I'd have never have done it.
Yes, sir.
What's the one thing that you got from your dad that it's just a part of you day in and day out?
I would say my father had a very strong will. And I mean it this way. When Dad set out that he was going to do something, he was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that stubbornness, that strong-willedness, I think I got some of that.
Mm-hmm.
When I decide we're going to do something, I'm going to accomplish something, I'm going to get something done, I'm going to get it done.
Mm-hmm. So what about your mom? Is your mom is still alive?
Yes, sir.
I've met her.
Yes, sir.
And I think I met your grandmother.
No, that's actually my father's sister. My father's sister, Aunt Esther.
Lovely people, lovely people. I give them such a hard time. I know they leave the restaurant and go, that guy's an idiot.
That is absolutely not what they say.
I always have so much fun with them. And with your daughter, she's going to be a pretty good attorney one day, or medical doctor or whatever. That girl's smart. What kind of mother is your mother?
You know, I'm an only child. They had a child about 5 years before me, who lasted about a week. So you know, she was very protective. But again, another strong-willed individual, someone who didn't believe in can't. I was diagnosed by my school and elementary school as being dyslexic, and they asked, you know, do you want to put him into some kind of special classes? What do you want to do? My mom said no. She said, I'll deal with it. And my mom, to her, she probably regretted it afterwards. She would spend so much time with me writing and reading.
Oh.
And it would take so much longer for me. The dyslexic person takes a lot longer
Mm-hmm.
to read a book.
Mm-hmm.
But she would force me to read. What genre do you want to read? What are you interested in? Well, I want to read Star Trek books. All right, let's find Star Trek novels at the library.
Mm-hmm.
And she would make me read them out loud to her
Mm-hmm.
in the evenings. And it was probably long and painful.
Yeah, yeah.
But she did that. And I'll tell you what, by the time I was in middle school, dyslexia wasn't really an issue for me anymore.
What a great mother.
Mm-hmm.
What a great mother. Judge, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. It's been a real honor, a real pleasure. You were a great judge, a great man, and I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you. I was honored to come. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. See you next week.